Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. You'll probably never see a more clickbait title for an ancient history video than this. I've managed to get Atlantis and the Great Pyramid into the title of this video without having to make any bold claims and also keeping it factual. Because yes, the word Atlantis was scrawled inside the Great Pyramid as part of a large area of historic graffiti. Now, I've never made a video on the more modern graffiti inside the grandest structure of all, because I never thought the viewers would be that interested. But it is actually a somewhat intriguing subject, for me anyway, to see the names of the people who visited and well defaced the structure, and Flinders Petrie even made a record of the earliest graffiti inside the pyramid. It mainly consists of names and dates of past visitors. There was once a lot more graffiti on the outside, on the pyramid's fine Chura limestone casing, and this was done way back in antiquity. It was noted by Herodotus, and it was also apparently recorded in a book by the Caliph Al-Mamun, but this is now sadly lost to history. Of course, the graffiti disappeared after the removal of the casing stones. The earliest piece of graffiti that's recorded by Petrie was from 1291 and was done by two Hungarian visitors, the names of which are shown on screen. Giovanni Caviglia stated he saw Roman writing in the Subterranean Chamber, but Petrie actually believed he was mistaken, and it was likely done by the Flemish mapmaker Gerardus Mercator, who also left graffiti near the entrance in the 16th century. The examples of graffiti recorded by Petrie don't say anything particularly interesting, and in his report to the Royal Archaeological Institute of Britain and Ireland in 1883, he didn't mention anything out of the ordinary. So I have to say, I was surprised when I came across a large scrawling in the Subterranean Chamber that includes the word Atlantis, and that really is the tip of the iceberg. Seeing it for the first time led me down a rabbit hole, and I've been meaning to make this video since October 2019, when I put together a compilation video showing photographs taken by the Edgar brothers in 1909. This one picture caught my attention because, as you can see, there is writing above the entrance of the Subterranean Chamber. In this picture we're inside the chamber and looking north towards the opening of the descending passageway. The picture comes from the book titled Great Pyramid Passages Volume 1, and I've only really found one decent online version of the book, and I've linked that below in the description. The picture is clear enough to see the interior of the chamber, but not clear enough to read the writing. We also have one other angle showing part of the graffiti, but not enough to understand what's written. Scouring the internet and the same picture was published by Smithsonian.com and the resolution is a bit better, and after putting it into Photoshop and also colorising the image, I have been able to make out quite a lot, but not all of what is written. I have to say it is a bizarre and somewhat intriguing piece of graffiti, and recently I posted it on Twitter to see if anyone could help with the words I couldn't decipher. I haven't been able to complete the puzzle just yet, but I'm hoping someone watching this can help, and I've left a link to the image below. So far, from what I can make out, the first line is unreadable, but it says, "Someone and someone, high priest and high priestess, and all of the 15 of Atlantis, Apollonius of Tyana, Apollo and something, March the 12th, 1905. The date of the inscription explains why it wasn't mentioned by Petrie, who reported his findings in 1883. But dates aside, I wonder who wrote this and why. Compared to other examples, it is an enormous piece of graffiti, and it looks to have an esoteric message, and as you can see there is a lot to take in. A good starting point is Apollonius of Tyana. He was a Greek philosopher, orator, social reformer and miracle worker, and he is thought to have lived between 15 and 100 AD. Most scholars agree he was a contemporary of Jesus of Nazareth. In fact, there is even a body of thought that Apollonius was the historical man behind Jesus. There is a book by Raymond Bernard, PhD, that claims that Apollonius was a teacher of righteousness of the Essene Jewish sect, who in the year 325 AD, at the Council of Nicaea, was replaced by a fictitious Messiah called Jesus Christ. The average person in the year 2022 has probably never heard of Apollonius, but at the beginning of the 20th century, a popular book was published in English by the author G.R.S. Mead. In this book, Chapter 10 is called the Gymnastic Office of Upper Egypt, which I probably pronounced quite wrong, and it looks at the account of Philostratus, known as the Athenian, who records that Apollonius visited the Gymnastic Office of Egypt. The Gymnastic Office were apparently ascetic and mystic communities that honeycombed Egypt at the time of Apollonius. This cultic people apparently had cave shrines and cells dotted on a hill close to the River Nile. The people of this cult would apparently be naked inside their shrines, but what they did inside we don't know. According to author Manly P. Hall in the book The Secret Teachings of the Ages, there were claims that Apollonius was initiated into the Arcanum of Egypt inside the Great Pyramid, where he was hung upon a cross until unconscious, and was then laid in the sarcophagus for 3 days. Here he went through a spiritual rebirth, returning from the land of the dead. Mead said that Philostratus records that Apollonius spent several days in a mysterious cave in Greece, a cave related to the oracle Trophonius. This is apparently a mysterious and ancient cave shrine, and from which Apollonius apparently emerged with a book full of questions and answers on philosophy. Now we find the link to Atlantis. Mead speculates that maybe, just maybe, this cave was a holy centre of the cult of Hellas, and may even be a relic of Greece from many thousands of years ago, from the time written about by Plato in the story of Atlantis. Mead says of this era, the only tradition of which, as Plato tells us, was obtained by Solon from the priests of Sais. Mead doesn't mention Atlantis by name, but this is clearly what he's referring to. So if you're reading Mead's book in 1901, you could well take home that Apollonius of Tyana went into the Greek cave shrine of the oracle Trophonius to get his divine knowledge and wisdom, and that this cave dates back to the time of Atlantis. You'd also know that Apollonius travelled to Egypt, and learned about and took part in rituals and rites in cave shrines on a hill that was close to the Nile, rituals of the ancient mystic people of Egypt. You may have also been aware that Apollonius was initiated into the Egyptian mystery school and was reborn inside the Great Pyramid. We next get a link to the Greek god Apollo, also mentioned in the Great Pyramid Graffiti. Trophonius was one of the so-called oracles of Apollo. He was a Greek hero or god, and Apollo was said to be his divine father. Trophonius is said to have built the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. The cave that bears his name is where he apparently fled, before disappearing forever. Reports in history say there was once an ancient pilgrimage to this cave. It looks as though, at the heart of it, there was some kind of ancient initiation ceremony. In the ritual, the initiate would first receive good spirit and good fortune, and after performing many tasks and rituals, the priest would take them inside the cave and sit them on the chair of memory. They would be asked what they have seen and learned, and the person would have to write it down on a tablet. To me, it looks as though Apollonius of Tyana was in fact an initiate of a Greek and Roman era mystery cult, and this was likely the source of his knowledge. Putting all this together, and it appears the popular book by G.R.S. Mead concerning Apollonius directly led to a belief system. People 100 or so years ago likely believed there were mystical, cultic cave shrines in both Greece and Egypt that most likely dated back to the times of Atlantis. The appearance of the Great Pyramid's subterranean chamber could easily be identified by readers of Mede and a New Age follower of Apollonius as an example of an Atlantean era cave shrine. This could be where you think Apollonius was initiated into the Egyptian mysteries. In fact, being deep below the most incredible man-made structure on Earth, in Egypt of all places, may mean that the person that wrote this graffiti in the subterranean chamber believed it was the most important ancient holy cave shrine from this long bygone and mythical era of history. The graffiti isn't telling a story. I think it's a list of people that the writer believed had been inside the subterranean chamber for initiation or knowledge. The high priest and high priestess, and all the priests or kings of Atlantis. The Greek god Apollo, the divine god or hero Trophonius, whose name I think is written here, or according to friend Shlomo Ishtov, it could be the name Artemis, the twin of Apollo. Of course, we also now know why Apollonius of Tyana is mentioned in the graffiti. The visitor into the pyramid that wrote this in 1905 had probably read Mede's book, and also invested in other popular claims of the day. Just like today, Atlantis was a popular story, with many articles and stories being published, as well as this fantasy novel, The Lost Continent, The Story of Atlantis, that was published in 1900. Ignatius Donnelly was the godfather of alternative history, and he really brought Atlantis to the mainstream in the 1880s, and likely inspired many writers and researchers, just like many authors do today. And some esoteric and occult writers at the end of the 19th century were weaving Atlantis into teachings and ideologies. Atlantis was a bandwagon for people to jump on. The author of the graffiti was a product of the day. They thought this was a truly sacred and holy chamber and pulled various different stories together. And I wouldn't be surprised if they even thought that Egypt was Atlantis itself. Of course, apart from Plato's dialogues, there is no real tangible evidence Atlantis was a real place, or that there was a mighty and advanced Greek and Egyptian civilization going back 10 to 12,000 years ago. But what we have here on the wall of the subterranean chamber is what a person believed nearly 120 years ago. Something that many may still believe is possible 120 years later. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.